What's up, comic book fans, and welcome to Comics Icons. Now, JJ, what they call me, and today we got more Fall of the House of X, with the start of a new 4-part miniseries that brings back a few of the characters that were killed at the Hellfire Gala, and this series connects a bunch of dots. Now, when we last saw Cannonball, Prodigy, Frenzy, Dazzler, and Jubilee, they were being introduced as members of the new X-Men team at the Hellfire Gala in one moment, and in the next, they were brutally wiped out by Nimrod. And then at the end of the Rise of the Powers of X issue number 1, we found out that the contingency plan was to go back to the past and wipe out Moira before her mutant powers activate. We also saw some of the crew members that were working with Professor X on this mission, but some of the names had been redacted from the file that we were shown. And I strongly believe that one of those names is revealed in this here issue. So without further ado, if you're ready to find out how Professor X's plan comes into fruition, let's get it. So when this issue kicks off, we see the treehouse. And if you're unaware of the significance of this treehouse, it was the headquarters of the X-Men in New York City and a consulate of the sovereign nation of Krakoa. But on the night of the Hellfire Gala, it was burned down when the Captain Krakoa suit was stolen. But then, Prodigy, Frenzy, Jubilee, Dazzler, and Cannonball are all teleported in, and they're looking for Moira McTaggart. And before you ask, it's not exactly shown how these guys are brought back, but we did see Eggs back in the Rise of Powers of X. But I'm hoping that we'll get a full reveal later as the Fall of the House of X and Rise of the Powers of X storylines start to come together. But these guys are dropped into what looks like a dystopian future, and then are immediately met with flying demons. Then we see that these guys are using the Moira engine that was created by Sinister, and they've landed in what's said to be temporal location Moira Engine 3.9. And it's now 1 month after Ileana Rasputin ascended to Lord of all Hells and raised the planet. Now, one thing to note here, if you're not familiar with Prodigy and his powers, he's got the telepathic ability to absorb and mimic the minds of the people close to him, which is essential to these guys' mission, which will get revealed to us soon. But when these guys are confronted by this Helliana, Prodigy lets the team know that Moira isn't there because he could feel Magic's memory of killing her along with everybody else. So this is pretty much a dead timeline, and these guys quickly ask to be pulled out of there, which they are. Then they're transported to Atlantic Krakoa, which is currently inside of the White Hot Room. And if you're not familiar with the White Hot Room, it's a realm located outside of time and space, kind of an afterlife and home to past and future Phoenix hosts. That's kind of the best way I can describe it for you guys. But then these guys are met with Rachel Summers, who then appears to these guys in the form of a burning bush, which kind of freaks out old Cannonball as he tells Rachel that he's a good old Southern boy and appearing in that form just ain't right. To which I kind of gotta agree with him there. Although I'm not a Southern boy, I was raised on the Bible, and an angel appearing to Moses in the form of a burning bush was a significant story, but I digress. But then we see Rachel Summers is actually broadcasting this image of herself from No Place X. And if you remember, that's where Charles and Rasputin and the rest of the team is at in Rise of the Powers of X. So I think it's safe to say that Rachel Summers was one of those redacted names as part of Charles's crew. But Rachel then tells them that they can't linger in these timelines for too long because they will attract unwanted attention, which we know from the Rise of the Powers of X is the Enigma Dominion. We also find out here that Rachel has unlocked Prodigy's powers, which was previously partially blocked, so he wouldn't lose his mind from overloading it with other minds. But they need him maxed out for this mission. We then find out that he needs to find one version of Moira who's non-cybernetic, so he can lift the information needed to get Xavier where he needs to go. Moira's own mental map of her past. Because Charles Xavier has a plan to talk to Moira in her 10th life before her powers manifested, but they need the exact date, time, and location that happened. But he can't trust anything Moira told him before her betrayal. So this is what their mission is. And they need Prodigy because Moira is able to hide her thoughts from normal telepaths, just like she did with Charles. But Prodigy's power is passive, and she might not be prepared for it. So these guys gather themselves a bit, and then they're ready to jump back into another Moira timeline. But Rachel warns them that they're running out of Moira engine pathways, and if they don't find what they're looking for on the next jump, they just might be out of luck. So now they jump to temporal location Moira engine 2.4, and it's 15 years after the end of Earth. And as soon as these guys get there, they immediately can't breathe. There's no oxygen here, and these guys are suffocating. But then they're instantly pulled through a portal by somebody, as we then see somebody else in the background was watching them from the moment they arrived. But then we see that these guys were rescued by this timeline's X-Men, who brought them into their ship in orbit. And this new X-Men team is led by one Abigail Brand. And now Brand wants to know why these guys look like they're long dead allies. So they go on to tell her that they are those same allies, just from a different timeline. But Prodigy is hit with a massive information dump from Abigail Brand. And now he knows exactly what happened to the Earth. That Abigail Brand was unwittingly the reason for its downfall, as she got the intergalactic war that she wanted. And Orbis Stellaris was pulling her strings, and the whole galaxy paid for the price of her cockiness. So now these new X-Men are wondering if the old X-Men are here to fix the Earth. But Frenzy lets them know that they can't reveal the reason for their arrival because of how paradoxes work. But they really need to be sent back down to the Earth. But then in that moment, the ship is attacked, and it's revealed that Orbis Stellaris wiped out Nimrod and the other AIs allied with Orcus. But AI was never just limited to Earth, and the Technarchy is filled the void. So these guys are being attacked by the Phalanx. So Dazzler asks them why they being chased by the freaking Phalanx. And we find out that these guys are carrying the last cachet of Mysterium in the world. Then we see that Orbis Stellaris is also approaching, and he wants the Mysterium as well. We also see that he's already in possession of a fragment of the Mcron crystal. And the Mcron crystal allows anyone to travel anywhere throughout the multiverse, the nexus of all realities. But then we go back to these new X-Men, back on the surface of the Earth, and they're now engaged in battle with the Phalanx. Meanwhile, Prodigy is sensing another presence, and he realizes that it's Moira, and she's close and still human. So these guys have found the right timeline, but they don't want to leave the other X-Men team behind, but the mission comes first. So they have to go and find Moira. But when they leave, we see that Abigail's X-Men team are saved by the Starjammers. And we also see that the son of Cannonball and Smasher is a part of the team, and he's all grown up, which is pretty cool, although Cannonball doesn't get a chance to interact with his kid. But as these guys attack the Phalanx, we see our dead X-Men team searching for Moira, when Prodigy senses that she's headed right towards them, and he's never absorbed a mind like hers before, since, she's had about 10 lives. That's one hell of a download. But then we see Warbird, who spotted Orbis Stellaris. So she breaks through his ship, and then we see the son of Cannonball, who has the powers of both his parents, come flying in, smashing the Mcron crystal into pieces. Then we go back to the dead X-Men team, and they're now fighting off more of the Phalanx, when the explosion from Stellaris' ship causes debris to fall, and a shard of the Mcron crystal lands right on Prodigy's chest. And then we see that person that had been watching these guys from when they first arrived. And we find out that this person was searching for something for nearly a decade now. And then this person runs right after Prodigy, but Cannonball sees this person and flies down to protect his teammate. And then we see that it is in fact Moira McTaggart, at least what's left of her, but she's at least still human. Then Prodigy is able to pull in a full download, while we get to see a nice little recap of some of her greatest hits. But now he's got it. He's got everything, a full map of Moira's past. And not just her 10th life. This Prodigy tells them that now they can go anywhere and any when. They can stop the Dominion before it's born now. So mission accomplished. And then they jump away from that timeline. But then we see Moira, who's left there, and she spots a shard of the Mcron crystal. But she's then shot at when she's spotted by Abigail Brand. But Moira is able to get the upper hand and uses this badass axe to drop Abigail. And then Abigail asks her, how is she even still alive? And that's when Moira reveals that she had to stay alive to build this axe, aka Weapon M, an adamantium femur pulled from one of Wolverine's corpses, and provides a steady base for the weapon. A carbonadium coil harvested from Omega Red, who somehow survived the end of the world, but she fused it to her spine so the weapon never leaves her side. Vibranium reinforcements dug out of Gentle's remains. And Gentle is a Wakandan mutant covered in vibranium tattoos. Shinzorn's severed head, which has the power to generate a black hole. And now this final missing piece, Mysterium, which is located inside of the Mcron crystal. Everything she needs to cut a path back to her very first life, start over again, and make sure that Moira always wins. And that, my friends, is the end of the issue. So wow, this was a pretty cool story, and although it looks like the X-Men have everything they need to go back and stop the Dominion from coming to be, Moira now has the means to jump back as well, and she's planning on going back to her first life, while Xavier is planning to go to her 10th. So it appears, my friends, that we're at a crossroads here. So what do you guys think will happen? Will Moira somehow foil these guys' plans and really jack everything up? Or will Charles' plan work and the whole Krakoan timeline be wiped out? And what did you guys think about that Weapon X? I, for one, can't wait to see more of that thing in action. Also, it feels like that shard in Prodigy's chest might be something to pay attention to later. I wonder if it'll level up his powers and allow him to jump timelines too. And if he got a full info dump from Moira's mind, then how come he didn't know to stop her from getting that last piece that she needed for her weapon? It's definitely a question going forward. But ladies and gentlemen, if you guys like this video and this channel, then you could be a tremendous help by giving a super thanks, which goes towards improving this channel. Or if you're unable to do that, then you can also help out by dropping a like, share, and subscribing to Comics Icons for more icons in the comic book world. But ladies and gentlemen, it's about that time. I'm out. Peace.